Welcome to the Conscious Consulting podcast. Today we are honored to have Dr. Madhumita Chatterji. And Madhumita, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. We were meeting in person in the beginning of this year in Bangalore and had a lovely conversation. And just to give you some background about Madhumita, she's the director of ABBS School of Management in Bangalore. And she's also taught in many renowned institutions, such as the Corvinus University in Budapest, where we have our common friend Laszlo, who introduced us, Laszlo Zsolnay, who also was on the podcast, by the way. Her extensive work covers corporate social responsibility, corporate governance, business ethics, cross-cultural management, business history, and Indian ethos and culture. And Madhumita, you have authored several books, including Corporate Social Responsibility. At a very early stage, you were one of the pioneers in these topics. Ethical leadership, Indian and European spiritual approaches, which of course gets me extremely excited. And another book called New Frontiers in Conflict Management, Peace Economics, and Peace Science. You are the executive director of the Mahatma Gandhi International Research Center for Conflict Prevention and Management, and you are a member of the advisory board of the European SPES Institutes. SPES is for Spirituality in Economics and Society, and you are a founding board member of the South Asian Alliance of Disaster Research Institutes. So such an active person. And you are also actively involved in research, teaching, and training senior executives in various soft skills, including team building, emotional intelligence, and cross-cultural understanding. And so there's so much to offer in this conversation. And I'm really excited to delve with you into insight and experience in creating a more conscious and ethical business world. And I think this is where we all meet with this intention and purpose in different ways. And Madhumita, so happy to have you here. And I'd like to get right into the questions. What brought you here, where you are right now? And maybe you can share a little bit about your journey in academia and in the industry, and what really inspired you to pursue a career in business ethics and sustainability.
Thank you, Julia. Thank you for having me. It was wonderful meeting you in India in person and sharing our ideas. There was so much of commonality between your thoughts and mine. So I really enjoyed interacting with you. Coming to your question, what brought me? If I may just go back to my childhood, I had a very wonderful childhood, loving parents, a wonderful school with a great principal, where we were taught about becoming good human beings, if I may say that. So while our education was very much a part of our growing up, in that it was a wonderful bringing up where our parents taught us that, you know, every faith is talking about respecting humanity, being human with others. And the school taught us, to respect and love everybody that we came along or met on the way. And I must give credit to my parents and my principal in school, who sort of oriented me towards this social sector, if I may say it. And I got keen to be part of this whole process of helping or being a part of the development process. And that's how I have always been oriented towards the social welfare or being with people and trying to look at this whole concept of the most important thing in life is to feel wanted. And how do you make people feel wanted? I know it's just not food, clothing, and shelter. There is more to life than just those basic necessities. So those were the thoughts that I grew up with. And every time, whether I was in school or college, I did participate in activities which brought me close to the unincluded sections of our society, or I worked with specially challenged children also, which made me feel that there is so much to life and which we just miss out in our hurry to, get material wealth as we are going on, because that's seen as the sign of success. So that's how I thought I'll get into academics, because I felt I could touch more lives if I was in academics, and every year a new batch of students, new thoughts, new ideas. It was very exciting for me. On a lighter note, you can't stop nature from aging you, but when you are in academics, every year you become younger because you are meeting generations who are much younger than you. And so new ideas come, and I feel that's the best way to stay young and add value to the world. That's how I got into academics, and this was an area I thought which needed a lot of inputs or ideas, and my learning as well, as I meet people like you and others, Laszlo and people like that, how we can be together and work on this. So this was how my journey started.
That's wonderful. And I think what you just said is that make people feel that they are wanted is really a key to everything. Yeah. Maybe you want to tell us a little bit more how you started the idea of sustainability and businesses. So you talked now a lot about inspiring people, maybe more at an individual level. What brought you to the business world where we are addressing a whole sector, a system, and organizations?
Right. It's interesting, Julia, that I wasn't planning to be in management. I came from the humanities background. I have a history background and economics background. And I got into management because one of the management school directors wanted me to talk about culture, ethos in the management area. So that got me excited that how do I bring in these thoughts into the management process? So that's when I started researching, and I found that there is management itself is such a subject where you have the mix of the humanities, the sciences, the engineering, the accounting, everything. So it's a mix of all this, and it is mixed like that because you're dealing with human beings. So when I delved deeper into these management concepts, I realized that business also has to work in a manner which takes care of the human aspect of living. While it is good to talk about products and it is good to talk about services and make profits, of course businesses have to make profits, there are no doubts about this. But how do we make profit, and what is the amount of profit do we want to make? And that is where I felt there was a big challenge, because we often wanted to move away from these questions in businesses, and we started talking about ethics in business and business ethics are two different entities. If very often I also got questioned when I entered this area with quite a few other professors who were in finance or hardcore marketing. They would say, is it really possible to do such things? Can we really have ethics in business? And I wondered why not, because for me the fundamental factor of business is ethics. You can't build a business without ethicality. The foundation of business has to be ethicality. If you look at any business in the world, no business starts by saying, I'm going to be unethical. And because then it won't be business. After all, the permission comes from the society, and society is not going to allow such business. That's why today we talk about legal businesses, illegal businesses. So business's foundation is that, and then you build the edifice on top of that. So where do we go wrong was my question always. That if we are going to start, if the foundation is that, where is the process? So it is people. At the end of the day, if you look at organization and if you break up the word, it is organicization, which means you're bringing something to life. And when you're bringing something to life, obviously the lifeblood is the human aspect of the business. So the buildings or the policies or the processes are not business. It's the human being who are going to bring about these policies, make the changes in business. And that's how I felt ethics has to be an important component. And in my opinion, why are we scared of ethics? Why do we feel that we shouldn't talk ethics? And we want to talk about everything in this world, but that's one aspect we feel we should move away from. But why? Shouldn't businesses wear their profits as their badges of honor? After all, business should look at profit in that manner. Society allows us to make profit. Shouldn't the professional honor the trust that the society lays on them? After all, who gives the pedestal to the professional? How do they get the honor that they are getting in the social system? The professionals are respected far higher than other works that we do in society. So that's the reason, because society believes that the professional has the knowledge, has the time, has spent time, is able to decipher, diagnose, infer in a much better way than the common man can. So we trust the professionals. So it's an interdependent world. And all this, as I delve deeper and deeper into the business sector, I realize it is nothing but a matrix of relationships. And all relationships are dependent on trust. No relationship can survive without trust. And trust is a two-way process, and it's a value. It's not a skill that I can teach in the classroom. So how do I get my students oriented towards this thought process, to start thinking that they have a responsibility towards the society, and they are going to be trusted, and if they don't honor the trust, what can happen? And very often we don't see the bigger picture. We are more interested in the immediate gain that we are going to get, and that leads to some catastrophic event which then impacts everybody. Even the business is not left out. I mean, COVID is a great example for us, or a natural disaster that would hit us. Today we are all talking about climate change, and how climate change is going to change business totally. I mean, whether it is your supply chain, whether it is your product composition, whether the services that you're going to offer, they're all going to be impacted by this. But who brought the climate change? So I often ask these questions to myself. Sorry, to myself and to my students. I mean, the earth doesn't need us. At the end of the day, we need the earth. We don't have any other planet to go to. So if we are not going to take care of her as a mother, or as the one that supplies us with all our needs, then we are not going to survive long. So these were the thoughts that made me get into the management process and the ethics part of it. And one more thing that happened was, very often I would be asked that, I've already learned ethics, ma'am. I mean, do you need to teach ethics? I think that's the reason we want to avoid the concept, because we believe that we have learned it. But my answer to that is, if we have learned ethics, by now we should be absolutely perfect in ethicality. So were we a better liar in class 5, or are we a better liar now? Is my answer. And if we are a better liar now, then did we learn our ethics? So that's where I have my question, because as a child, you do not understand business. If I'm expecting that a 10-year-old is going to understand the complexities of business and be able to fathom where ethicality is going to, face him or challenge him, I'm just not being right about it. I give him the foundation, but as he grows, he has to keep talking about it, thinking about it. It's a lifelong learning, because you get so many different kinds of challenges, so many different kinds of opportunities, so many different kinds of, people that you meet. So how are you going to develop yourself, your own values, to be able to take these challenges on your stride? Because temptations would be there. There would be, your bosses or your seniors may be asking you to deliver something, because there'll be targets, there'll be, and how do we map all this into this whole idea? Because we have seen businesses disappear. We have seen businesses remain for more than 150, 200 years, because they have worked on ethicality. India is famous for its Tata's CSR, and we all talk about it. But even there, they have spoken about that. Have we moved away from CSR at times? In fact, Ratan Tata said that, let's get back to our original values. So these were things that made me think that it's you can still make profit, and you can still contribute. And if we don't contribute to the society, then none of us are going to exist. So that is the reason I started looking at sustainability, CSR behavior, corporate citizenship, ethics. And, one of the things that as I went through my research, I realized that very often there might be activities or occurrences which will not have a rule to fall back on. You see, the easiest thing in life is to follow a rule. And that's why we create rules, we create codes. They're very important. They're very important for the basic sustainability. I don't think rules take you to the height of excellence. They start you off at the basic level. And then we have to work positively beyond the rules, positively, I highlight that word, to reach that excellence that we are looking for. And organizations, since we deal with human beings, since we deal with such a diverse world and so many different kinds of challenges, may throw up challenges which may not have a rule, because after all, the rule comes into existence after something has happened, either with us or somewhere else, and then we make a rule. But we cannot make a rule for something we don't know about. So when that kind of an instance comes in front of us, what do we fall back upon? Our own conscience. That's the only place I can fall back upon to take a decision. And that conscience, if it is not purified, if it is not really looking at the well-being of all, then the decisions would go wrong. And interestingly, in business, as you move higher and higher, you become lonelier and lonelier. You can't put the blame on somebody else, so you have to take that decision. And the higher you are, your decision has a larger impact. You're going to impact probably millions of people with one decision, probably thousands of people with one decision, and you're not going to have a rule to be standing by. So normally your conscience will always give you the right direction, I feel, unless you have submerged your conscience into believing, because we have an intelligent brain which can justify anything. It can justify the good, the bad, the ugly, and we can say, well, conscience is nonsense and I can move on. But we are seeing the reaction. So that's what made me go deeper into these aspects, and then that moved me to spirituality and see whether that can have an impact in business as well. So that's my take on. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Madhumita. There were so many things you touched upon that were touching me, like the idea that every business in its origin is ethical. Otherwise, it would not be allowed by society, for example. And the question, where do we get lost? Probably this is where spirituality comes in. That very much explains us where we get lost in greed, in separation, in accumulation of material wealth. The idea of having an inner compass that guides you, and this inner compass is cultivated by ethical impulses and ethical frameworks. I would like to ask you here, because ethics is very different in different cultures, and as you're an expert in cross-cultural sciences and human behavior, and you very well know like European and Indian spiritual and wisdom traditions. Do we have a shared ethical framework as humanity on a deeper level? Do we know what's the right thing to do, where we can add to the well-being of people and planet? In which way? So what is good, what is bad, what is helpful, what's positive, what's negative? It's all very relational. And is it depending on the culture, or do we have a shared view of this? What's an ethical business? What's an ethical leader?
Yeah, I know. Very often that's the question that is asked, that isn't ethics a relative question? Now, if ethics did become a relative question, then we shouldn't be talking ethics at all. So in my opinion, there is a shared framework across the world. I'll just simplify it by saying, what is our aspiration at the at this point, or at this time of our existence across the world. If I asked you, or I asked anybody, what is your aspiration? You want to be happy and prosperous, or do you want to be unhappy and not be prosperous? Everybody will say, I want to be happy, I want to be prosperous, I want to live in harmony. I don't think anybody in this world is going to say, I want to be unhappy, I want to be in disharmony, I don't want to be prosperous. I think these are the three things for which we are all working across the world in our own ways. And we are trying to justify our ways of working, saying this is going to lead to my happiness. And so, how do we define happiness? What is my happiness at the end of the day? So, if I look at it like, I want freedom. Now, you can't have freedom without responsibility. No freedom can exist without responsibility. Then it will be mayhem, then it will be anarchy. So happiness also cannot come by having unhappiness around me. Then you're not going to be happy. So how I define, so everybody's journey is towards the happiness, towards prosperity, and towards harmony. Now, how well we take it towards that makes us a happy person, a positive person, looking at the growth of all. And that is what is going to give. So there is a framework that across the world we can talk about, which says that this is how we are going to move towards it. So the effort that you are putting today is to gain something and to become something. Now, is that going to make you happy? So if we start looking backwards, if we start saying that, okay, my goal is happiness and prosperity. Now let me trace back my activities and see whether that is what I'm going to get. And if I trace it back that way, then the framework is very clear to everyone. As a human being, I can't live alone. I mean, the fact that we came into a society is because we want to share, we want to, give, we want to take care. We are a community that wants to nurture each other. Human beings have that wonderful brain, and that's the beauty of human existence, that you can dream of becoming something. So a little girl can dream of becoming a Mother Teresa, or a little boy can think of becoming Vivekananda or a Nelson Mandela. So am I going to use this intelligent brain to make the world a better place where I can really be happy and prosperous? Because when I'm talking prosperity, it is about material wealth, but that material wealth has to conserve life. What's the use of millions and millions of dollars if I'm not well, or if people around me are not well? And as a simple thought, I can't eat money, I can't wear money. Money is just a facilitator. So I have to decide, where do I peg my aspiration? Where do I peg my, needs? How much do I want? And nobody can do that. And if I'm dependent on somebody outside deciding what I need, then I'll always be a leaf floating in the air. I mean, you're constantly like a football getting kicked, because everybody gives you a different aspiration, and you are trying to run a race that you are incapable of. And then suddenly you feel very tired, very stressed, and you feel your entire journey has been a mistake, and that's too late by then. So if I start with the framework that, yeah, I want to be happy, I want to be prosperous, I want to be in harmony. Now, harmony includes everybody. That's where I talk about the bigger picture. I mean, harmony is not only with the human being, harmony is also with nature, harmony is also with the, other entities of this world. So if I, think of myself as a creation of God, then I have to reflect God. If I don't believe in God, I'm not saying everybody has to believe in that, or you believe in a superpower, then that superpower is within you. You should be able to reflect that superpower, and I'm sure the superpower is positive that you have in your mind. And if I believe only in the evolutionary process, to say, okay, from that little insect or the mollusk, I have become the human being, then I must respect that insect, because every evolution has an involution. So I must have been carried by that little insect through all these processes of evolution to evolve as me. So shouldn't I respect everybody who carried me before me? So the moment I start seeing the world as interconnected, as I seeing the world that I'm not the only individual, or I, me, and myself is not the only important entity, I think then you see the framework very, very clearly across the world, that we all are striving to achieve the same thing, but we are fighting because we are looking at only short-term goals. We are trying to say, okay, if I have become this, it's good enough. I don't care about the others. But then such a world is not going to be a happy world. We are seeing it around us, isn't it? I mean, look
Yeah.
at the amount of terrorism, look at the amount of, things happening around, the scams, the thefts, and are we really happy with all this? I don't think a person is born a terrorist or born as a thief or born as a murderer or born as anything. So it's the circumstances that make. So who is responsible for this circumstance? We are all part of the environment. I cannot say I'm not part of the environment. I am part of it. And therefore, I have a responsibility to ensure that this environment stays good, stays positive, and adds value to life. If my knowledge is not going to be creative, this I've taken from my own philosophy. If my knowledge is not going to add value to creativity, then knowledge has no meaning. I mean, what's the use of knowledge if it is not going to be creative? It doesn't give us creative existence. And if my wealth is not going to preserve life, then that wealth has no meaning, because what's the use of wealth that kills everybody or destroys the planet or destroys the other species in the planet who don't disturb us? So we are all dependent. And also we have to look at that I have to give space for the new generation to come. I cannot hold on and say, look, I know it all. I do not know it all. And that's the way the nature has defined it so well, that even if the fruit comes first, that fruit cannot hang on to the tree. It has to fall, because the new fruit is going to come. So there has to be this dissemination of energy. It is not, I won't call it destruction, it's a dissemination of energy, and then you recreate that energy beautifully. So that if we understand this, then everything falls into place around us. You start seeing nature, you start seeing other species, you start seeing other human beings, and you start helping those whom who are not as privileged as you, either in knowledge or wealth, or because that's the way we are going to grow together. And if you're not going to grow together, then we are heading for a world where none of us are going to be happy.
Right.
After all this journey, I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
So that's my take on this.
Beautiful. So your students are, how old are they? They're like 20 something, younger,
Yes.
around 20?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
21, 23. They've just finished their graduation, which you called undergrad in your country. So they've completed their that, and they're now in their master's degree. So they're all between 21 to 23. That's the age group that is there.
Yeah. So there are two questions I have, and maybe we can have a look at them together. One thing is that my experience is that once we talk about the term spirituality in business, I actually try to avoid it, because people, there seems to be a taboo to even say the word. It's very much connected easily to religion, and I rather call it maybe the intrinsic motivation or the intrinsic aspects or inner aspects rather than the spiritual ones. It's for me the same thing, but it's easier to take versus the external, extrinsic motivators or more material motivators. So how do you use the term? And what are the key questions your students have right now? So what are they interested in most? And how receptive are they to these ideas of being an ethical human being, creating ethical businesses?
See, in India, the word spirituality is not such a big taboo. because you grow up listening about it. All homes talk about it. Everywhere you talk about it. But I agree with you. There is still a big connect in their mind that spirituality relates to religion. So we have to break this myth that it is not religion that is spirituality. So at present in our country, like when I'm talking about that happiness and prosperity, this is a course that has been, it's called Universal Human Values, and very well designed by in our education system. So all the bodies like the UGC or the AICT and all are asking all of us to talk about it in our institutions, and they are sharing all these thoughts with us. So that's a good initiative that has happened. But talking about my institution and what are the questions that the students have. So when we do talk about spirituality, they do have the question that is it related to religion? And that's the first notion that we have to break, that religion is something that is about, it can be about dogmas, traditions, because it's a too large a term, and each one of us have come from a different background. So spirituality is the spirit that we talk about, which you talked about, the inner intrinsic value of being human. And the external paraphernalia that you have met as a child is probably the religion, but you have to cull out the beautiful spirit that is hidden in every religion. Has talked about human beings being the most sacred creation, or who have we no religion talks about enmity or fighting or killing. It's not talking like that. It is talking about growth. It is talking about the human aspect, but we've lost it somewhere. We have had vested interest people come in and talk about it in different manners. Fundamentalism is growing. So we try and distinguish this and explain it to the student that the spirituality is the inner spirit, the intrinsic value that you have to look at, and that is there across the world, and everybody likes to talk about it. And so it's about the universal human values. Even our system is talking about that. We are not talking religion, we are not talking spirituality as well. So we are talking about the human values that we would like to inculcate. So they do have questions, because especially the new generation, in India also now we have nuclear families where children are the privileged class whom we get in our institutions are usually one or two siblings. That's all. So they may be the only child, or they may just be two kids in the family, and they have grown up with the best of everything that their parents could give. Every parent is trying to give the best they can in the material sense or in the education. So they come with an entitlement. They feel I have to have this, and that's one of the big challenges that we face, because as we say, they grow up as kings and queens, and suddenly they come here and they realize that life is not the king and the queen that they grew up with. So that feeling of entitlement we have to slowly remove. It's not that you break it in a day, but you explain to them, you show it to them that your entitlement is as important as somebody else's entitlement. So you have to understand that somebody also has another entitlement. So you cannot take everything to yourself. You have to learn to share. So we have these sessions, we have these workshops where we ask them to debate, to discuss. In fact, I have a course here which I call it Corporate Spiritual and Social Responsibility, because I want them to start questioning, even in the social responsibility, the amount of spirituality that needs to be there or doesn't need to be there. They have to start questioning themselves, because very often they say, ma'am, I don't care what happens to somebody else. After all, I'm not party to that. I have not done it. Or so I want to leave the individual as he or she is. It's their right to lead their life as they want to. It all sounds fantastic, but can you stay away from all this? Because it is as much your responsibility to ensure that everybody is growing. And are you aware of in your class, how many students are they going through depression? Are they having problems in simple thing as learning, or are they having problems in solving a math sum? Are you aware of it? Do you know their backgrounds? Do you share? Do you So that's the way we are trying to break this concept of entitlement and saying that, I am the best, because you are not the best, and there are many, many, many like you. But yes, and they do have this question that, why should I meddle with somebody else's life, because it's their way of existing. It's true, you should not meddle where not necessary, but if you can help, why would you not help? Just saying that, just excusing yourself by saying, I know he is going through depression, or I know he is having a problem, but then I don't want to meddle with his life. It's fine. So, if that is the attitude, then nobody will meddle with yours when you will need support, because there is none of us who doesn't need support. We will also need support somewhere with somebody. And with this attitude, you're not going to go far, because in the corporate world, like, such people, if they say I don't want to meddle, will be standing by watching somebody make a mistake, and after the mistake is done, you will say, I told you so. I mean, you should have told me when I was making the mistake, right? Then the corporate world can prosper. Otherwise, we go back to zero and start all over again, because you just didn't want to be the sharing person, because you wanted to have that ego of saying, I knew it, I didn't want to tell because I don't want to meddle. So those are little things that we start teaching them and asking them to reflect. And they do come up with a lot of questions. And I'm not saying that all of them become perfect by the end of it, but we feel that we have at least shown them a path. We have given them something to think about, because they do, as a youngster, they do have the challenges of getting the best job, or starting an entrepreneurship that they can sustain. They have their loans, they have their parents who have their aspirations. So those managing all those things and yet trying to look into this aspect of their existence is something that we bring to them.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think we talked about it in Bangalore, that we see the same level of entitlement in children all about Europe, the Western world, and also in Asia, of course. And it leads
Yes,
to probably what we don't need, like people who are entitled and could become ruthless leaders. And what you're doing seems like you're giving them a very personal education, the one that you received. And it's about really teaching people how to be a decent human being, because the person you are is basically the leader you are. There's really not a big difference. Like,
correct.
who you are will also transpire to your way of how you lead and the environment that you're creating for other people as a leader. And you also said you work with grown leaders, with people already in leadership positions. And I was wondering how you work with conflict resolution and peace. I thought the Mahatma Gandhi Institute might influence the work you do in the corporate and business environment.
Yes. See, this Mahatma Gandhi Center of Conflict Resolution, Prevention, and Resolution Development. This whole center is the brainchild of Dr. Manas Chatterji. He had started it, and he sort of, I'm now the co-owner of this center. So we have it in our place. The idea is to look at economics from a peaceful angle, because how no economy can grow without peace. That history has told us, history has shown us, and we can see countries which are more peaceful are developing much more better than countries who are war-torn, or wars are happening on their ground because somebody else doesn't want it in their own ground. So that's again something that we want our leaders to understand, that you cannot say that the war is happening somewhere else, it doesn't matter to me. It does matter. It does impact all of us. So when I'm talking about conflict resolution, yes, I ask them to look think about it from a, as we discussed earlier, the bigger picture. What is the resolution that I'm going to do, and what will be the impact later on? Very often, we take a decision of, say, a simple thing like, I'm going to suspend this person. But have you understood why that happened? Was there an opportunity for the person to explain, or could you see the human side of it? That, or well, it can be somebody who is trying to be a truant player and is trying to disrupt the team. And that's where if you are managed, if you can manage your emotion, you'll be able to see it very clearly, that whether that person is just trying to disrupt the team and do this, or there is a genuine issue. So first and foremost, I have to manage my emotions before I can go ahead and try and manage anybody else's emotion. If I'm going to get angry and expect my junior not to get angry, then I'm not setting a great example. And very often that happens, right? We hear, oh, the boss is going to get angry, as if the right for anger is only with the boss. So the boss has to realize that, yes, I can be angry, and these emotions need to be managed so that I'm a role model for the rest of my team. And you earn that respect so that people are able to come and discuss with you, give you ideas, share their ideas. Because if I'm not open to ideas, then I am going to wear my blinkers all my life and probably lead the organization in a manner which today will not survive. Because after all, as you said, we are aging. So I have my ideas that I grew up with, and now there are many other things, like there is a huge change in technology that is happening around me. Now I have to learn to accept that technology, but through my experience, I have to tell them that, look, technology is again a facilitator, because you cannot use technology to remove the human aspect from existence. Even whether it is AI or any other technology, it cannot have that human brain or the human emotion of nurturing and touching lives. And human beings cannot live without that. We were made to nurture each other, we were made to love each other, we were made to build relationships, and that's why we build relationships. So these factors have to be understood, and that is where we talk about emotional intelligence, emotional management. Because I strongly believe, in fact, we're going to have an FDP on that on the 13th during this conference, where we are talking about that emotion is your core. The emotion, if I may call it the heart, though of course emotion is in the brain itself and scientifically written, but emotion is the core with which we interacted with the world from the time we were born. The first interaction with the world is through emotion, through crying, through. And how does the mother know why the crying is happening? Because there is an emotional connect with the child that you develop. So, and anything good, if you look at it, look at our talking style. When we talk, we say, a good hearted person. We don't say a good brained person, or, good intelligent person. Or a good meal, we call it a hearty meal. Or when we have a great discussion with a friend where you have really shared, we say a heart to heart chat. So the whole idea is, it's so core to us, and then telling somebody that, you leave it at home. No, you can't leave it at home. You can manage. And we are constantly managing. So it is nothing new, not at all new to anybody. Each one of us are beautifully able to manage our emotion. We have to just take it a notch higher. And that is where I think the support is needed from mentors or teachers or people around you, your parents, who can guide you how to manage it well, people with experience. So it is not something you're teaching new, it's not rocket science, it is just showing them that level. And I think it often helps them to realize that, because when you are young, you are, as you say, you want to be raring to go, you want to do things, but it's the white hair that tells you, this can lead to this, take care, and then move ahead. Keep that in mind. So that's the way I feel we are working with, and telling them that you have to be open, and without
So,
being open about it, you can't lead an organization.
It reminds me also of the idea that a lot of wisdom traditions and spiritual teachings share is the idea of empathy and compassion in different forms. It comes in everywhere in the world. It comes as a key teaching and as result also of connection and feeling other people also emotionally and caring for them in a sense as compassion.
Yes. Yes.
Genuinely care for other people as if it was you,
Yes.
and not make this distinction. And I think it's beautiful to teach that leadership is not about others, making other people do something, but by inspiring them by who you are. But what inspired you to write the book Ethical Leaderships, Indian and European Spiritual Approaches? And what if I as a leader read it, what would be my main takeaway? What would make me an ethical leader very specifically from your learnings and teachings?
See, this was a book, it is actually an edited book by me and Laszlo. So we had a conference on this particular concept, and we had a number of authors who submitted articles. So we brought all that together. And and what we found was everybody was talking about the same perspective, that ethics is not different in America, not different in India, though we try to make it different, because ethics is about the virtues of human existence. And if I wanted to define virtues of human existence, they are, all these beautiful things like love, honesty, fairness, gratitude. These are the virtues which are intangible. I mean, today, of course, we try and measure it with some quantitative factors, but these are intangibles that are existing across the world. And if I talked love to an American, he would also know what I'm talking about. Maybe he'll express it differently, but at the core of it, it is the same. So when I'm talking justice or when I'm talking loyalty, we are talking the same thing. It is we just try and justify it by bringing in a bit of a cultural aspect, or talking about that, no, in India, fairness is not about that. You have to do this. It's not true. But that's why I said you have an intelligent brain, and the brain can justify anything. So that emotional handling is where, if you handle it well, your brain will justify the right thing. So but today's education is only working on the brain. It is only working on the skills, and everything, I'm calling it skill, from communication skill to grooming skill to everything is skill, 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 skill. There is no concept of values being talked about. As I said, why are we scared of talking about it? Why don't we talk about consciousness? Why don't we talk about your inner well-being? Why don't we talk about your happiness? And you talked about empathy. I mean, like we discuss in class, empathy is not only understanding somebody else's or being in somebody else's shoes. As we say, you first take off your shoes before you enter somebody else's shoes. What we do is we'll wear our shoes and enter somebody else's shoes and pretend to be empathetic.
Yeah, we still value other people from our. And how is it possible to be an ethical leader, empathy, as you say, caring for other people, caring for the environment, in a highly unethical business world, in a hyper-capitalist world? It's not easy to stick and not be distracted, torn away by circumstances. As you say, we also find excuses. Yeah, I would if I could, but this is what I experience a lot in my work. What do you say to that?
This is what you have asked is a very rational question, if I may say that. It is very, very rational. Yeah. So, this is the right thing that everybody will ask. So we have to go beyond this question where I have asked, what is there in it for me? Do you get my question? It is saying, what is there in it for me? And we have always judged everything by saying, what will I gain out of it? I'll be honest, what will I gain out of it? I'll be truthful, what will I gain out of it? But if I give you an example, the people that we put on pedestal, we say they are great human beings, they have done a lot. They never ask this question, what will I get out of it, or what will I gain out of it? And today you and I respect the same person. The same capitalist world respects the same Nelson Mandela, or Martin Luther King, or Mother Teresa, or Vivekananda, or Gandhi. Name any of them whom we have put there, because that's the first thing I have to start looking at myself. Am I only calculating my gains? Am I only seeing what am I going to get out of it? Because it looks a very rational concept. After all, I have to survive, I have to live, it's a competitive world. But then what are you doing? You are putting your entire factor on the outside, which you said, the outside factor, which is ruling you. You have to start looking at your inner strength to say, how much do I need? What do I need to do? What do I need to care for? What is my want or need? Because nobody can put an end to that. There is no end to desire, and capitalist world will throw up beautiful things all around us. So, in the name of choice, we get so many things. But who is going to decide what choice you're going to make? It is you. So, that inner spirit is what we are talking about. Today, we are totally dependent on this outside factor, which is ruling us. We are constantly trying to judge ourselves with somebody else's promotion, somebody else's wealth, somebody else's. So, we are constantly feeling deprived. Even if I have risen to the level of an MD, I'm looking at somebody else who's getting more salary. So I'm always feeling deprived. So when will I be happy?
Never.
So this and this constant deprivation feeling, nobody can take away, because if you're going to be ruled by the outside external factors, then it will always keep changing. So that is always in turmoil. The only peace is inside. And so the more I start developing that, I'm not saying I'm the best in that, but yes, if we start looking inside, if we start asking questions to ourselves, if we start having a little time of meditation to look around, watch nature, how it behaves. Nature is a great teacher. I mean, if you look at it, it never disturbs the balance. It works beautifully. Like we discuss in class, I mean, one of my favorite things to say is, the lion doesn't have a refrigerator to kill the deers and keep it there because it doesn't want to go hunting for 5 days, or is scared that I might not get. Is the human being who's always scared I might not get. No other species is scared of I may not get. They're happy with whatever is around that. So if we as human beings start looking at the world from that perspective, that there is enough for all of us, there is enough wealth around us, and we can all be happy, then it makes a lot of difference. But that has to come from internal factors. Like if I'm going to be driven from outside, my deprivation will never go. I have to start looking for happiness internally. And that's why in our Indian philosophy, we say, Aham Brahmasmi, I'm God. I know what I can do. I have the strength to do it. But am I awakening that spirit? That spirit has to be awakened away from the material aspects of life. And I have to have the strength to say no to many of the things that are going to tempt me, that are going to be around me. So it's a journey, Julia. It doesn't happen in a day. But if we start the journey, at least we are on the right path. That's what I believe for my young students. And to be honest, I have received many a times letters from them when they have reached senior position, discussing about what we discussed in class and being happy about it, or saying, I could, overcome this temptation, or I never thought I would do this, but I'm doing it. So those are factors which help me to keep moving in my journey. That they are my motivations. When I hear them or read them, or they'll just gift me a book with saying, ma'am, this is what we discussed. And that little gesture tells me that they are thinking, they are looking beyond their present existence in the material world. It is difficult, but if you do little meditations, if you give yourself time off, I always say you have to give yourself time off, because when you are in action, you're not having an insight, neither a foresight. You can't have both of them. It is only when you have a time off, you have an insight, and you know what you have done wrong, and then you can have a foresight, and the next action becomes better. So this triangle is something that we have to start developing within ourselves. We are going to falter, but if you develop it, it will slowly take hold of you and help you to judge it. So we can write our little things, little notes, tell ourselves, work on that. That's the way I think we can move ahead.
Madhumita, I think what you said now is such powerful messages. Everybody needs to hear it. Young people, more senior people, actually everyone. And I was thinking about my studies of international business in Vienna, and nobody once, one single time talked about any of those. Nothing. It's incredible. I studied in the 1990s. I started studying in 1993. So this was a time where capitalism and external factors were valued, and the abstraction was like valued so much more than the direct experience of life. And I really had to educate myself in some sense, with my family background, of course. But what you're doing is like putting these seeds, and even if people at age 20 might not comprehend everything you say, one day they might have this epitome where they say, now I understand. Now I'm in this doubt. Now I'm in this tension. And now I got the tool. I got like the inner navigator that I was given. It's such a huge gift. And I wish that your way of teaching would be applied to all young people, and also really honestly to people who are already in power right now. I think there's a huge need for understanding the importance of creating this inner strength and clarity and awareness for everyday business, because business is ultimately made of non-business ingredients. As you said, it's made of desires and anxieties and hopes and visions and all of that. Madhumita, slowly coming to an end, I have two more questions. What are you most excited and interested in your work right now? And what are your main future plans? To talk a little bit more about the future, the present and the future of where are you heading right now? What's the key direction you're most interested in?
Yeah, I'm interested in what I told you, the sustainability, social responsibility, and the ethics bit of it, and the spirituality. So I'm delving a little more deeper into it and trying to see where are the other areas where I can bring that. So I'm excited because, to give you an example, I brought in disaster management, which is not there in any management school, because I feel that's part of our sustainable living, that's part of our learning. So those are little exciting things that is guiding me, and also about how to make the student education a little more experiential, doing things and learning from that. So introducing new ways of teaching, guiding the faculty, sitting down, discussing with them. So we are looking at we have a campus to community project where the students go out and deal with social issues. So that's becoming exciting. We had it long back also, but we are trying to make it a little more robust. And some research also we are doing, because about how the younger generation feels about these concepts. And surprisingly, they are very, very attuned to these. I know they do talk about these, sustainable ways of living, caring, nurturing. It's not that they are not aware of it. They also want it. And I'm sure they're practicing it in their life, and they talk about it. So we've done a bit of a research on that, and we are preparing a paper to say what we think and what they think. And actually there is not much of a difference, but it is the way of expression. So that is exciting me at the moment. But I'm not moving away from my core area, though I also teach HR and OB, and I feel that's because motivation and all are part of this. So that's there. And the future, yes, I'm trying to look at including this in all kinds of curriculums, and asking everybody from school onwards, because I got that school education and I think that drove me, and I had parents who supported me. But if the school also drives these concepts into the child, so we are trying to look at having FDP, that is faculty development programs, or small management development programs, may not be at the senior level, but at their leadership level, where they are becoming a leader, young leader, who has to perform, who has, the quarterly reports to write. How do they do it? Because we read so many things in the newspaper about somebody saying, I was under pressure and therefore I did it. I honestly don't want to do it. So to let the people know that that kind of pressure is not a good pressure. So and there is something that we are doing about, as I said, in the disaster management area, about how management education should involve that. So that's one, I'm working on that for the future. So I did go to Sichuan University. I had the good fortune of being invited there. Gretchen Kalonji, actually, she has come for the conference. You'll be able to hear her if you join early on the 11th.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she is there. So we are looking at all these aspects, and I'm also looking at um, we have submitted some projects on how to get the ecosystem working, the green blue, with for which I'm working with IIT Roorkee professor, because they have the technology, and I know I'm working on the human side of the management and how to convince people to become resilient and help the world to grow better. So the water area, the blue green, we call it, the green space. So we are working with institutions who have large plots of land, and trying to tell them, how do you save water, how do you become an example in the community, how does the community get involved in it. So that's the way the future that I'm looking at. And we don't know, maybe a few more experiments and it will take us to other organizations, because everybody seems quite excited. And now also diversity, equity, and inclusion has become an important aspect. We are having a panel on that, so that's an area also, because those are the areas, whether it is physically challenged or other kinds of special needs that our people have, often get ignored, often they are not noticed. So they need to be part of the society, because otherwise there is no peace in society. So there is one organization that works here, so they're doing well, so we work with them. So those are my future directions of moving on. The core will remain this, but where all can I bring it in? So one is disaster, one is LGBTQ, and all these curriculum change and all that. That's the future that I would like to look at. And even talk about the wonderful technology that is coming, but how technology has to be used ethically by all of us, and because that's going to rule the world. So and that's a big challenge, because technology can be mishandled, and then you are in chaos all over again.
I think technology kind of amplifies our inner state of being right now.
Yeah.
So let's take care of our inner state. Madhumita, thank you so much. I really love talking to you and listening to all your wisdom. And I really feel this energy that you radiate, and the many forms you bring this inner energy into the world and manifest. It's very impressive and very inspiring. And thank you so much for being here on the Conscious Consulting podcast, and see you very soon.
Thank you so much, Julia. And as you say, I'm now a senior citizen, so I'm 62. I need to give back as much as I can before, the before I really get into that age where I'm not able to contribute. So that's probably another reason which keeps me going. And so I really enjoyed talking to you and meeting you. And I'm so thankful that you are doing such a great job of collecting these thoughts and putting it out there, because I'm sure there'll be questions that will come to you through these podcasts, and which again opens up newer avenues of thought. We'll also learn new things as new questions come, because we really don't know what is something else in somebody else's mind. So that's why it's a wonderful job that you are doing, and I congratulate you, and I hope you take it on and you publish that book that you are planning to publish. I'm waiting to read it.
I'm about it, and I think one of my purposes in life is to amplify the positive, the beautiful ideas and the inspiring thoughts in the world and spread them around. So one way of spreading them is that I will also give your the books titles and some resources that you created in the show notes, so that people are able to find you and contact you and your LinkedIn profile. If you offer, maybe people can contact you directly and ask their questions or give their resonance, would be beautiful. So thank you, Madhumita. Have a wonderful day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.